She made America smile. With her feathered blonde hair, soft voice, and innocent eyes, Dana Plato wasn't just a child star, she was America's sweetheart. Millions tuned in every week just to watch her light up the screen in Diff'rent Strokes. In the late 70s and early 80s, she embodied everything the public adored in a teenage girl: charm, purity, and just enough mischief to be lovable. She was the daughter every parent wanted, the friend every teenager wished for. But behind the camera, a different story was unfolding. Hollywood had handed her fame before she could sign her own contracts. Money, pressure, and expectations piled up on a girl who hadn't yet finished growing. While America saw a glowing starlet, Dana was already falling, silently. Her adolescence was sold to the screen, her choices dictated by agents and ratings. The price? A stolen youth, and a future she never truly owned. By her 20s, the roles stopped coming. By her 30s, she was living in a motorhome, struggling with addiction, bouncing between odd jobs and headlines that read more like warnings than news. At 34, Dana Plato died from an overdose. Some say suicide, others call it accidental. But the tragedy was clear: the little girl who once made America laugh had quietly become its forgotten cautionary tale. What happened between the spotlight and the shadows? Why did no one notice her slipping until it was far too late? This is the untold story of Dana Plato. In the golden age of American sitcoms, when family-friendly television ruled primetime, Diff'rent Strokes debuted like a burst of light. It was 1978, and with it came a young girl named Dana Plato, who played Kimberly Drummond, the sweet, protective, blonde daughter of a wealthy widower who adopted 2 African-American boys. The show broke racial ground, but Dana was the heart. She entered the scene like a comet. Radiant, approachable, with feathered golden curls and the kind of girl-next-door smile that television adored. At just 14, she wasn't acting. She was living in the eyes of the public, growing up on screen. Magazines called her the face of wholesome America. Teen fans sent thousands of letters weekly. Dana Plato was no longer a person, she was an archetype. But her rise wasn't random. Born in California in 1964 and adopted as an infant, Dana showed signs of talent early. She was taking figure skating lessons before she turned 5, aiming for Olympic dreams before Hollywood called. Her beauty and charisma landed her commercials by the dozens: Wella Balsam, Dole. Even an early appearance in a Kmart ad. By age 10, she had already appeared in over 100 TV spots. Producers took note. When Diff'rent Strokes came knocking, it wasn't just another job, it was destiny. Her portrayal of Kimberly gave the show a tender balance between comedy and sensitivity. In a household filled with racial dynamics and class tension, Dana's Kimberly was the emotional anchor, compassionate, loyal, and always just mature enough to carry a scene without losing her youthful charm. She became a cultural staple. Talk shows wanted her. Fan clubs blossomed. Even tabloids, still relatively tame in the late 70s, covered her school dances and birthday parties. Dana Plato represented everything right with young Hollywood. To the public, she was happy, successful, in control. But like so many teen stars before her, and after, Dana was navigating an adult world with a child's heart. The smiles were real, but the pressure was invisible. Still, the audience didn't see that. They saw a girl who could hold her own alongside veteran actors. They saw someone who looked perfect in every frame, who could cry on cue and then laugh with ease. Dana Plato wasn't just a young actress. She was a product of a system that sculpted images to comfort and captivate middle America. No one questioned the pace. No one asked what it cost her. To her fans, Dana was eternal sunshine on screen. To the network, she was a ratings goldmine. To her mother and manager, She was the ticket to a better life. Everyone saw what they wanted. No one saw the cracks. Long before the studio lights and the adoring fans, there was a little girl whose life had already begun with silence. Dana Michelle Strain was born on November 7, 1964, in Maywood, California. Just 7 months later, she was adopted by Dean and Florine K. Plato. Her biological mother, an unwed teenager, gave her up, perhaps in hope, perhaps in fear. Dana would never meet her. Raised in the sun-soaked suburbs of Los Angeles, Dana's childhood looked picture-perfect from the outside. But behind the neat lawns and casting calls was a mother who was determined to make her daughter somebody. Kay Plato wasn't just a mother, she was Dana's manager, her guide. Her only real parent after Dana's adoptive father left the family when she was still a toddler. Dana barely remembered him. By age 5, Dana was already balancing skating competitions and commercial auditions. Kay pushed hard. There was no room for failure, no time for childhood. The days began early on the rink and ended in front of casting directors. Dana was sweet, obedient, and, above all, marketable. She quickly became the breadwinner of the household, earning more in a week than most families in a month. The message was clear: your value is what you can give. But no one stopped to ask what was being taken. At school, Dana was the outsider. Fame, even at its earliest stage, made her different. Other kids whispered about her TV roles. Teachers gave her leeway, or in some cases, ignored her entirely. The few friends she had didn't last. Between shoots and skating, there was simply no time. By the time she turned 10, Dana had experienced more rejection, competition, and performance anxiety than most adults face in a lifetime. Worse still, her home life was fragile. Kay Plato, while determined, was not emotionally nurturing. She treated Dana more like an investment than a daughter. There were no heart-to-heart talks, no guidance through adolescence, no real boundary between life and career. When Dana began showing signs of anxiety, it was chalked up to nerves. When she grew increasingly distant, it was dismissed as being dramatic. Then came the moment that changed everything. At just 15 years old, Dana became pregnant by her boyfriend, something that shocked the producers of Diff'rent Strokes. The news was devastating to a network that banked on her girl-next-door image. Her character Kimberly was still in high school. The actress now had a baby bump. The response was swift and clinical: she was written off the show. Temporarily, they said. Until after the baby. But deep down, Dana knew, this wasn't a pause. It was exile. She gave birth to her son, Tyler Lambert, in 1984. She was 19. And almost instantly, she became something Hollywood didn't know what to do with, a teen mom with baggage. Dana wanted to come back. She tried. But the roles weren't there. Or when they were, they came with whispers. She's too complicated now. Unreliable. In a desperate attempt to regain her image, Dana posed for Playboy in 1989. The photos caused a stir, but not the kind she hoped for. They didn't revive her career, they marked her fall. From then on, she became a punchline, not a headline. But even deeper than the career wounds were the personal ones. In the late 80s, Dana was arrested multiple times, for forging prescriptions, robbing a video store with a pellet gun, and public intoxication. The girl who once melted hearts on screen was now flashing mugshots across the evening news. She was trying to scream, but all people saw was a former child star gone bad. Few knew she was battling addiction, the kind that creeps in slowly, first as a coping mechanism, then as a necessity. She had tried to escape it through marriage, through motherhood, through the hope of a comeback. But the past kept pulling her down. No one teaches child stars how to become adults. No one tells them how to transition from being adored to being ignored. Behind every smile Dana gave to the public, there was a child still waiting for someone, anyone, to see her pain. But by then, everyone had stopped looking. She didn't rise again. She clawed, scraped, reinvented herself in a world that had already decided what she was, a fallen starlet. But Dana Plato wasn't ready to disappear. Not yet. After being written off Diff'rent Strokes, Dana tried to rebuild what she had lost. Hollywood, however, had moved on. The phone calls slowed, then stopped. Directors wanted fresh faces. Not former scandals. She was no longer the sweet Kimberly Drummond. She was the teen mom, the troublemaker, the liability. In response, Dana began creating a new version of herself, one that might survive in the tabloid-obsessed, late 80s media jungle. Gone was the innocent smile. In its place, sultry stares, provocative roles, and a determination to prove she was still relevant. She accepted parts in low-budget B-movies, many of which leaned into sexualized or horror-driven narratives. Bikini Beach Race, Lethal Cowboy, Exorcism at Midnight, titles that never saw theaters, but sold on VHS shelves with her name in bold. The acting was secondary. What mattered was that she was working. She needed the checks. Yes, but more than that, she needed to feel seen. In 1989, she posed for Playboy magazine, bearing all in an attempt to shock the industry back into noticing her. The shoot was glossy, calculated, and heartbreaking. The girl who once wore school uniforms on set was now shedding every layer, literally and figuratively, to stay in the game. She wasn't selling sex. She was selling relevance. But the reinvention didn't stop there. She did radio interviews, leaned into her reputation as the wild child, and even mocked her own fall from grace in public appearances. Dana Plato became a walking contradiction, trying to reclaim her dignity by leaning into the very image that had destroyed her. Behind the scenes, she struggled with painkiller addiction. The result of past surgeries and emotional scars. Pills gave her the calm the world wouldn't. Alcohol filled the gaps. Still, she tried. She got married. Briefly. Divorced. Tried again. Nothing stuck. In 1991, desperate for stability, Dana attempted one last pivot. She moved to Las Vegas and began working at a dry cleaning store. It was a far cry from red carpets and studio lots. But for a while, it was peaceful. Anonymous. Ordinary. Until her name resurfaced, for all the wrong reasons. In 1991, Dana Plato was arrested for robbing a video store with a pellet gun. The amount taken? $164.50. She was caught minutes later, still nearby. When news broke, it spread like wildfire. The media feasted. A former TV sweetheart, now reduced to crime. The irony was too delicious for tabloids to resist. Dana claimed it was a moment of desperation, not criminal intent. The court gave her probation. The public gave her ridicule. From that point on, Dana Plato became a punchline. Late-night hosts joked about her. Former fans shook their heads. And yet, she kept trying. She tried rehab. She tried writing scripts. She even appeared on the Howard Stern show, raw and emotional, admitting her past, defending her present, and asking, pleading, for a second chance. In one haunting moment during the interview, she told Stern and his audience, "I'm clean now. I've finally turned it around." She wanted to be believed. She needed to be believed. But the truth was more complicated. That same weekend, on May 8, 1999, Dana Plato died of a drug overdose while visiting her fiancé's mother in Oklahoma. The coroner later ruled it a suicide, citing toxic levels of painkillers and muscle relaxants. She was just 34 years old. In a cruel twist, her son, Tyler Lambert, would also die by suicide 11 years later, in 2010. He was 25. The reinvention never worked because Dana Plato was never allowed to be whole to begin with. Every version of herself, child star, vixen, felon, survivor, was crafted in reaction to a world that kept demanding she be something else. And when there was nothing left to give, it was silence that claimed her. There was a time when Dana Plato had it all, at least, from the outside. The peak came early, abrupt, and bright. At just 14 years old, she was a national sensation. Every week, over 20 million viewers watched her on Diff'rent Strokes. She was on cereal boxes, teen magazine covers, and talk shows. When she walked into a room, people smiled as if they knew her. They loved Kimberly Drummond. They believed Dana was her. That was the problem. Because behind that smile was a girl who never wanted to be a symbol. She wanted to be real. But the machine wouldn't allow it. Her career peak was actually a trap, one that froze her in time, in character, and in expectation. While her co-stars Gary Coleman and Todd Bridges also struggled with the child star curse, Dana's burden was unique. She was a girl in an industry that sexualized youth while demanding innocence. She was expected to be attractive, but not too bold. Polished, but not fake. Marketable, but not complicated. And when she broke that mold, when she became a teenage mother, Hollywood had no place for her. Still, the echoes of her fame lingered. Throughout the late 80s, she was invited to conventions, reunions, and nostalgic television retrospectives. But she was always seated at the edge of the table, never the spotlight. The industry remembered her, as a warning. To fill the void, Dana tried to create new peaks for herself. She launched small projects, took interviews, spoke openly about addiction and survival. But the real peak, the most dangerous one, was emotional. Because it came when she truly believed she could get it back. She believed that if she cleaned up, stayed sober, appeared vulnerable enough on air, people would forgive her. She believed the public missed her, that someone in casting still remembered the girl with the velvet smile. That belief, in itself, was the peak. Hope wrapped in delusion. The price, however, was relentless. She paid with dignity, as tabloids published her mugshots next to her childhood headshots. She paid with relationships, cycling through brief romances that started with compassion and ended in collapse. She paid with her body, numbed by years of prescription drugs meant to treat the wounds no one could see. Worse, she paid with her son. Tyler Lambert, born into chaos, watched his mother crumble in public. Dana loved him deeply, but addiction and instability made motherhood a battlefield. She fought to be present, but often fell short. Tyler spent much of his childhood in the care of others. He once said in an interview, "She tried. I know she did. But the world broke her before she could even figure out who she was." By the late 90s, Dana was living in a motorhome, driving from city to city with her fiancé. She took odd jobs. She signed autographs for cash. She did anything to stay afloat. The same public who once adored her now whispered rumors of prostitution, of desperation, of failure. Dana never confirmed these stories. She didn't have to. The sadness in her eyes told them for her. In 1999, she made what would be her final public appearance. A live interview on The Howard Stern Show. For the first time in years, millions heard her voice again. She sounded hopeful, clear, almost happy. She said she was clean. That she was planning a comeback. That she finally understood who she was without the cameras. But Stern didn't believe her. Nor did most of his audience. They mocked her during the show. Laughed when she cried. Treated her trauma like entertainment. It would be the last time Dana Plato spoke to the world. The next day, May 8, 1999, she was found dead in her motorhome in Oklahoma. The cause, an overdose of painkillers and muscle relaxants. Whether it was accidental or intentional remains debated. But what's clear is this. Dana Plato died trying to climb out of a hole she never dug. She reached for light in a world that only ever gave her shadows. Dana Plato didn't die in a mansion. There were no tributes on primetime TV, no grand retrospectives on her career. She passed away in a parked motorhome, far from any studio, far from any applause. Just 34 years old, and yet she had lived a dozen lifetimes. Fame, motherhood, scandal, addiction, reinvention, heartbreak. All of it compressed into a few tragic decades, then silence. Her death barely made headlines. Most outlets reduced it to a footnote, former child star overdoses. But to those who looked closer, it wasn't just a sad ending, it was a mirror. A reflection of what happens when the world demands perfection from a child, but offers no grace to the adult they become. In the years that followed, her story was referenced in documentaries, articles, cautionary tales. But always in passing. As if to say, don't be like Dana. Yet that was never the point. Because Dana Plato wasn't weak. She was a survivor in a system designed to discard. She tried. Again and again. She fought to reclaim her voice, her son, her name. She lost, not because she lacked strength. But because no one ever taught her how to fall without shattering. Her son, Tyler Lambert, took his own life in 2010, on the anniversary of her death. And with that, the story ended. Quietly. Brutally. But maybe not completely. Maybe Dana Plato didn't vanish. Maybe she became something else entirely. A warning whispered in the silence of Hollywood's golden lies.